Good evening, everyone. It's 6:30, and it's a miserable old damp, dreary. So no one had to get into their cars or walk through the rain or anything like that to get here tonight, which is always a good start to an evening, I suppose. I'm going to get started if that's okay with everybody. Okay, so well, good evening and welcome to our Dublin and Mid-East Sustainable Energy Community Regional Event. Under normal circumstances, SEAI would have run a national event, probably in Athlone this year, but with COVID, they're regional, and we hope that this one is worthwhile to you. So to begin, I have some housekeeping to attend to. First, I want to let you know that we're recording tonight's session, so if you feel uncomfortable, feel free to turn off your cameras. Also invite you to update your name so that others can identify who you are, and maybe let us know what group you're with. And please put questions into the question and answer box, not the chat box, and there'll be plenty of opportunity to ask questions at the end. So to begin, I want to give you a quick overview on our workshop tonight. We have the experience, hopefully will be useful to all of you, to all of our SECs in Dublin and Mid-East region. We built the content for tonight's workshop in response to issues raised by you in a recent survey by Codema of SEC members. And so briefly, here's some of the findings from that survey. Well, 75% of you cited a lack of time and resources within members of your community to effectively get involved. 69% of groups wanted training on promoting and growing their SECs. 44% of you wanted a webinar with SECs at different stages who could share their experience with you. So a tick for that one here tonight. And also 75% of respondents said that they wanted further training, finance and grants. So again, hopefully we'll touch on some of those ideas. So hopefully tonight's workshop will address some of those requests for further information. I think we have a great lineup of speakers tonight, and we are sure that it offers something for everyone. So without further ado from me and me rambling on, I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker. This is Stuart Garland, who's the Training and Programs Manager with Volunteer Ireland. Stuart manages the National Volunteer Management Leadership Programme. He leads, develops and manages events and ambassador volunteering programs. And tonight he's going to share some advice on how SECs might effectively manage their time and resources. So thank you, Stuart.
Thanks a lot, Gavin. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. Hopefully you'll find our session nice and interesting and hopefully engaging in terms of looking at some of the things that are happening both in volunteering at the moment and around the world that I'd like to share with you. Again, beyond tonight's session, if you've got anything that you'd like to ask us, feel free to get in contact with me. You can contact me, it's stuart@volunteer.ie, or you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. We have a whole series of resources. I'll be talking a little bit about some of them tonight, but you can download all of those from our website, which is volunteer.ie. So just before we start, tell you a little bit about Volunteer Ireland. If you don't know about what we do, we're a support body for volunteer and volunteer centres around the country. Every county has a volunteer centre, and in Dublin City, we have one in Dublin City, Fingal, South Dublin, Dunleary, Rathdown. And they're there to support you in terms of recruiting volunteers, but also in terms of developing structures and policies to engage volunteers in your organisation. We promote and celebrate volunteering through a whole range of programmes and events, which most recently include the Volunteer Ireland Awards, which took place at the weekend, and International Volunteer Day. And our next big event will be coming up as National Volunteering Week in early 2021. We provide a whole range of stuff involving organisations to support you, no matter what your size is, whether you're volunteer-led yourselves or you actually have staff. It is about supporting you to do the best that you possibly can in volunteer management. What I'm going to share with you tonight, I suppose, is very much a whistle-stop tour over the next 20 minutes or so. But really what I want you to do is maybe think of 2 or 3 things that you can be doing in your volunteer program that you might take away from tonight's session. Don't try to overload yourself. There are probably many challenges that you're facing right now in terms of the pandemic and the challenges that are there for us. But again, it's about getting yourself on the ladder and improving your volunteer management practice. And finally, we provide a whole range of services to the community and the corporate sector in terms of supporting them with their volunteer programs. Your local centres are there to support you on the ground. They're there to link volunteers who are interested in doing volunteering. Opportunities will be advertised on their website, and again, you can see those ones that are there. So if you go to our website, it's volunteer.ie, and the national volunteering database is called ivol.ie, and all of those opportunities are up there. What I would say to you at the moment is we've had a lot of people come forward who are really keen and interested in getting involved in volunteering, and which is a great thing. But we're also going to see, and we've researched on this quite recently with Ipsos in terms of the drop off of people that have stopped volunteering and are probably unlikely to return to volunteering in 2021. Do have a webinar, free webinar that's coming up in January. So if you'd like, you can join us for that. You can get the details on the website. We provide a whole range of locally through the centres in terms of training and volunteer managers networks to link up with others that are in the same field as yourself. And they also provide a series of supports to volunteer involving organisations, as well as Garda vetting and other services on a local level. So what we're going to talk tonight a little bit is around volunteer leadership. And we have moved from the model of volunteer management which we've had, which has remained pretty much unchanged since 1967 in the book by Naylor, as she described it. And what we're now looking towards, I suppose, is looking towards that match of volunteers giving and volunteers getting. Okay, so it's very much around thinking about what your beneficiaries' needs are and what the volunteers' needs are, and trying to match those two up. Thinking a little bit about how easy we can make it to volunteer. And that's not to say we take out everything in terms of the structures that might be there, but we focus on linking in with our local volunteer centres that they can advertise those opportunities for you. They can make the difference. We have volunteers across a really broad range of skills and abilities who are out there. So whether it's someone that you'd like to join to get their hands dirty, or it's someone you'd like to join on your board, or it's someone that you'd like to come in to give some episodic one-off skilled experience to your particular project, they're all there. We do have an agreement with LinkedIn as well, where a lot of those opportunities are scraped onto their database too as well. So all of those elements really go into volunteer leadership around engaging the right people into the roles. So when we talk about volunteer management and leadership, and the steps I suppose really are in that is taking a little bit of time in terms of our volunteer engagement, thinking of the type of person we'd like to get involved in our organisation, developing a role, and a role description doesn't need to be something long. It should be clear, concise, maybe 2 pages maximum, to the point, bullet point, that people can decide, yes, this is for me, this is what I'd like to do, or maybe this isn't a role for me. Starting that recruitment process, and the volunteer centres are there to help and support you. So if you're not sure where to start, where to look, what channels to use, the centres are there to help you with all of that. When you get to the point in terms of interview and screening, again, having a chat, that might be on Zoom or some other platform, but it's really important that you get to find out and meet people and talk to them a little bit about their experience. Orientation and training is really important in terms of giving the opportunity to your volunteers to find out the way you do things, because no two projects are the same. We might all have the same sort of ethos and values, but you'll find that we all have our own little volunteer culture within our programs. So again, it's an opportunity for them to buy into that, and also for them to ask questions and find out a little bit more around that. Again, you might have the opportunity to build those relationships between volunteers themselves, or if you have staff in your program too as well. That coordination and support piece is around building on that piece of giving the volunteer the opportunity to get out and on the ground and get the tasks done. Supervision will be required in the role, and how you do that, I suppose, is very much up to yourself and will depend on the role. But it's important to check in, and the volunteer is getting some sort of support while they're in the project. Making sure there's an evaluation mechanism that's there, and there's lots of tools like volunteer impact assessment, which are specifically based around volunteer engagement, and the research-based tools, very simple to use. Make sure you recognize your volunteers on an ongoing basis, and that can be done very, very simply. Very small little things can be done. Engage in that piece in terms of record keeping and reporting. And most importantly is getting the input and feedback from volunteers over the period of time that they're with your project. The important piece that we need to realize is that right now, as we're all aware, lots of things are changing in the world. And I suppose I just want to share a few quick little slides which in this in terms of sort of the dynamic that's there in terms of volunteering. So globally around the world, we have about the equivalent of full-time equivalent of 109 million people are volunteering. So more than the Russian Federation, not as much as the United States, but a really substantial amount of people are coming forward to volunteer. We've seen a peak of volunteering in Ireland since about 2007. Again, we're seeing at the moment right now during COVID that some people in the at-risk and at high-risk categories will not return to volunteering in 2021. All right, so that will mean that we have to look broader and to a much larger audience of people to get involved in terms of our volunteering. Globally, most of the people that are getting involved in volunteering are getting involved informally. So that's without an organization. Formal volunteering is through an organization, whereas informal volunteering is individuals coming together and having an idea. Now, informal volunteering tends to lead to formal volunteering, but it's much bigger outside Ireland. But what we have seen is since March of this year, around about 25,500 people have come forward specifically looking for roles to get involved in COVID-19. In the UK, that figure is as high as 750,000 people are interested in getting involved in those particular roles. The challenges for us, I suppose, is that right now it might be difficult for us to be doing face-to-face meetings and looking at some of the ways that we might explore different things. In Ireland, we're fifth in the World Giving Index from SEAI. All right, so 40% of the population is giving their time to volunteer. So we're punching well above our weight in terms of the country, and that's down to that infrastructure that we have, as well as that good volunteering ethos over the last number of years. And a lot of those organisations like Winch na Tír, the GAA, and St. Vincent de Paul that started volunteering a number of years ago. But as I did mention, we have a lot of more people who are interested in coming forward to do short-term episodic volunteering. So that's project-based. So it might be a one-off project, or it might be for 5 months, or it might be for 6 months. But there is a keen interest in those coming forward. And as well, we're also seeing an increasing number of 18 to 24-year-olds coming forward to volunteer. So again, think in terms of if you're looking for people to join, what could you possibly offer that group, all right, in terms of that might be a group that you might be interested in engaging with. Right now, globally, we're seeing lots of changes in volunteering. So we're moving from that formal every Tuesday volunteering to people moving to new things. So virtual volunteering, online volunteering, micro volunteering, which is small bite-sized volunteering, slacktivism, which is spelt incorrectly, and emergency volunteering. So again, we've seen the government is now putting resources into a volunteer reserve here in Ireland as part of the new volunteering strategy. So all these changes are taking place, and you might look at some of those things and say, well, that's not for us and it doesn't work for us. And sometimes we've got to see that the world has changed around us, society has changed around us, and so has volunteering. So it's not that we need to change the way that we do things, but we need to be more adaptable and more approachable for new people to come in and engage in volunteering in our organizations. And some of these are routes to getting them involved with organizations like yourselves. So just to, I suppose, as one example is that we take a look at virtual volunteering. And, people might say this is very new. It's been around for a long time. 1971 is the first time that virtual roles appeared. And that's online volunteering, where people can do it online or they can volunteer from home. Again, we're not going to spend too much time talking about this tonight, but if you are interested, there's a whole section on our website on both virtual volunteering and micro volunteering, giving you some ideas about the types of roles that are available there. The key thing for volunteers is that it does offer that flexibility in that they don't have to be there at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. Like tonight, we didn't all have to travel to a venue. We can just go to our living room or wherever and log on to tonight's meeting. It did also increase that small piece of micro volunteering where people can get involved in bite-sized projects. And we've seen lots of things happening around Be My Eyes, projects like Counting Bees, environmental projects that have been out there where people are getting involved in large-scale projects on a one-off basis. And that's allowing them the opportunity to find out about an organization, see if it's something that they'd like to get involved with, and then make that next step, either to virtual volunteering or form of volunteering involved straight into your organization. So the thing, I suppose, around having virtual volunteers involved is, I suppose, it can extend your reach, you know, so you can reach a much broader range of people that you might possibly be involved in. Again, it can allow people to volunteer in their own time at their own base. It can reduce some of those barriers for volunteers. So if someone has a disability or has additional support needs, they can get involved and they can do that from home, all right? It does send around, I suppose, that positive message in terms of your organization being progressive. And that's a really, really important one that people will want to engage with. People don't want to engage with something that seems to be stagnant or stale or not making any sort of, you know, willingness to change in terms of volunteering in society, all right? You will obviously reach a broader range of people than are there in terms of traditional volunteering, and that can supplement what you're doing there in terms of it. And obviously anything that's online is a proven recruitment tool in terms of getting more younger people involved. Some of the work that you're doing may better be served by virtual volunteers, where if it is that you're doing a piece of research or you're developing a project or you're looking for funding for something. I know in our own organization, we received quite a large amount of funding last year, and a volunteer came in to support us with that application for funding, in terms of he had expertise in the field, which we didn't have. And again, that was absolutely great for us. He was able to come in, he did it virtually, he didn't need to come in, he was based in Cork and our office was in Dublin. So it was a win-win for both of us in terms of good management of his time. And again, is that piece in terms of us going, we were getting something out of it and he was getting something out of it too as well, all right? So, if we're looking at going virtual, there's a number of steps that we need to get involved. And again, I'll send you on a copy of these slides afterwards, so don't be worrying too much about writing it all down. Or as I say, a lot of the resources are there on our website. But again, if you've got volunteering that's there running already, it is about taking a little bit of time to think about maybe what are the roles that we could get people involved in. There might be a little bit of resistance and pushback to go, no, it's all, you know, it's all on computers now, and it doesn't have to be on computer. It can be volunteering from home. It can be as simple as making phone calls, or again, is lobbying, lots of different ways to get involved. It doesn't just mean that someone has to have a computer. So do think of that as well in terms of there shouldn't be a digital divide in terms of virtual volunteering being offsite. It is around thinking about how you might upskill either your current volunteers or new volunteers to get a better understanding of virtual volunteering. Again, beyond tonight, we've lots of training that's going to be coming up in the new year. Some of that's free too as well for you to participate in, to help you to develop roles in terms of virtual volunteering, to look at those different types, see what would work for you. And even if it's just a basic thing that you need a bit of support in terms of writing a role description, we're there to help you with that. Think in terms of who is the person that's going to answer the calls if someone is coming into your organization. So is it an email? Is it a message that you put up on a Facebook group? Is it something that you have down in the shops or whatever? That person that's going to take that message should know as much as they possibly can. Maybe it's that you're approaching people directly, but make sure that you've got that key information there in terms of engagement of the call to action when you're making that call to someone to come and volunteer with you. Role descriptions, really, really important. So it is that piece of people have a concern, they don't know what a role involves, they're a little bit unsure about it. So again, it provides that confidence to someone to go, yeah, this is something I could do, because quite often people go, no, that sounds too big. It's something that's unachievable to me. I don't have the time to do that. So make sure you've got that there. Talk a little bit about their responsibility. So again, that little bit of boundaries that are there within their role. And again, talking about that virtual volunteering should be integrated in terms of what you're doing, not an add-on piece that's there. But again, it will hopefully look at a route of bringing new people in who may consider then taking on formal volunteer roles within your organization. There are lots of resources that are there in terms of supporting virtual volunteering. And again, please feel free to get in contact with us in Volunteer Ireland, and we'd be delighted to support you in that. There is that change that's taken place in terms of volunteering anyway at the moment, and some groups are meeting and they can help in terms of no contact or low contact tasks, and some volunteer involving organizations are not currently recruiting. On the other hand, looking at the informal volunteering, again, it'll depend on the type of volunteers that you're looking for. But again, there is a certain amount of liability, again, that follows with volunteering. So making sure that whatever you're doing, whether you're encouraging informal or formal, that you do realize we do have a duty of care to people in terms of the health and safety guidelines. All right. So there's a few different types of informal volunteering. So that again can be person orientated in terms of helping a person in various different roles, or task orientated. So it's divided down into those two particular pieces and offering two routes for people to engage in that. Micro volunteering, as I mentioned a little bit earlier on, is that route in terms of getting us to virtual volunteering. Doesn't involve anything in terms of high security or confidential roles. So again, our screening levels can be quite low, an opportunity for the volunteer to get to know us in our organization, and likewise for us to get to know them a little bit. Not going to be so much dependent on time, which again is a flexible offer in terms of our volunteers, and again can be done by individuals or groups of individuals. So again, we have our corporate volunteering program in Volunteer Ireland, which one of my colleagues leads up there. So again, if you're interested in getting a project done or getting support of a corporate, not just in terms of maybe an environmental project, but a company coming in to support you with a skill set that they might have. So it might be around strategic development. We've had skilled volunteers going in and supporting organizations. If you're interested in that, please do get in contact with us in Volunteer Ireland. We do have a whole series of resources available online. So again, it can be whether it's something as simple as moving to online training for your volunteers, or following the safety guidelines in terms of return to volunteer through the various levels. Those resources are there available to download from our website. If you are looking at extending the reach of your volunteers, so it might be that you're looking at your volunteer group and you're saying, well, we're very white and we're very Irish and we fit between the 40 and 50-year age group, and we'd like to extend that a little bit more. We have a really good toolkit on inclusive volunteering. And we have a new program which is just starting. Well, it started last year, but the pilots are starting this year, looking at family volunteering. And again, that's looking at another new way of engaging a broader range of people, and not just a traditional family of mum, dad, and son or daughter, but it could be granddad with grandchildren, uncle and aunt with niece or nephew, or just two people that are living in the same household, or a number of people from the LGBTQ plus community. So lots of different options that are there. As I say, all of those resources and all of those pieces are available on our website. The thing that we want to do, and I leave you with these two last thoughts, I suppose, is when we're engaging our volunteers is getting them motivated in the first place, but keeping that motivation going, all right? And that's an important piece in terms of our communication with our volunteers, is find out what motivates them, what can keep them motivated. And that motivation might change over time in terms of things that are going on in their life for them right now. We should also think a little bit in terms of making sure that we've got the task ready before the ask. Sometimes we'll jump straight in and we're going, we need volunteers and let's go and get them. So let's just ask, Stuart, are you available? Can you do this? It's really important that we take the time to develop that role description, that we get it written down, that the volunteer is clear what they're going to be doing before we actually engage them in the organization. And it's important to have clear and reasonable expectations on both sides, from both the volunteer and from your own side. And if you do a little bit of an exercise on this, quite often you'll find that as volunteers, you will expect to be treated as professionals, and as an organization, your expectation of the volunteers will also be the same. Okay, that's it from me. I hope you've all found that useful. My email address there is on the screen, and again, I'm sure our colleagues will circulate the slides to you afterwards. I hope you've all found that useful. And again, if you want to drop into our website, you can find all of those resources there. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Stuart. That was great. Just a couple of little points, I suppose, that I picked up from Stuart's talk. 40% of the population are volunteering, so that's a great kind of starting place to come from. And I thought, interestingly, 54% of people are looking for short-term projects. So that's exciting. So if, as Stuart said, if you can get the task before you ask, I think there's a real opportunity there, to find people. People are willing to give time. So that's very exciting. And 18 to 24-year-olds want to volunteer. That's great news. I think, again, I really feel that, this area, the area of sustainability, the area of climate action, is attractive to younger people. They get it, They understand why we're trying to do this. So, I think if you can make projects, if you can define tasks for them, I think you could probably find a home for them. Slacktivism, I don't know what it is, but it sounds great. I don't know if it means doing nothing or or
It's both. It's being a slacker and being an activist at the
right.
same time. And
I'll go for it.
refers mainly to people that are the keyboard warriors. So again, people negatively look at it and say, "Oh, well, they're slackers and they're doing nothing." But obviously, you know, it is a route to volunteering too, as well, that we should be aware of. Yeah.
Great. Anyway, I like the word. And I suppose one concern I have from Stuart's talk is the high-risk volunteers. You know, we've depended so much on a certain demographic for volunteering in Ireland, and they just may not be around. You know, so we're going to have to broaden our horizons as to what all that looks like. So, folks, thank you very much. Thank you, Stuart. Next up, we have Suzanne Fitzpatrick, who will be talking about promoting your SEC and giving best practice tips. Suzanne is Communications Manager with Codema, which is the energy agency for Dublin, working with the 4 Dublin local authorities and other stakeholders to transition Dublin to a healthy, sustainable, low carbon region. So Suzanne's getting set up there. I would ask you all, folks, please do make use of the questions and answers tab. There's not the chat button, but please do ask questions because we've got some great people here today. So we'd love you to make use of the talent that we have available to us. So Suzanne, over to you if you're ready. Thank you.
That's great, Gavin. Thanks a million. So good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many of you online here this evening. And as Gavin said, I'm the Communications Manager with Codema, the Energy Agency for Dublin. And we've been acting as the regional coordinator for the SECs in the Dublin and Mid-East region for almost a year now. And what a year it's been. And I suppose I would have been hoping to have met some of you by now had it been a normal year, but it's been anything but that. So hopefully by next year I can get to meet some of you and we can start seeing physical events making a comeback in 2021 with a bit of luck. So I'm obviously here tonight to speak to you about how you can best promote your sustainable energy community, and hopefully I'll give you a few tips and takeaways that you can apply to your SEC after this. So just looking quickly at the areas that I'm going to touch on this evening. So we're going to start off by looking at how to set communication objectives for your SEC and who your local target audience is, how you can use your allies within your local network to help support the growth and awareness of your SEC. Then we'll move on to digital platforms and how you can promote yourself and your group online through social media platforms, through websites and newsletters, and also how you can use local media to gain coverage of your SEC as well. And we'll also look at events. And as I've said, we haven't had too many physical events this year, but I'll give you a quick overview on both online and face-to-face events and how they can help boost awareness and growth of your SEC. And then finally, I'll just end with a recap on the tools and templates that Codema has developed over the past few months. These are all available on our website and they're there to help SECs with promotion of their group. So we're covering a lot of areas, I'm aware, over the next 15 minutes or so, and there's a lot of topics in that. So without further ado, I'll just move on to the first topic, which is looking at setting your communication objectives. And I suppose the reason I wanted to cover this area first is that we can't really talk about the best ways of promoting your sustainable energy community without looking at the fundamental reasons why you want to promote yourself in the first place. And this is where you'll really see the benefit of setting strong communication objectives, because these should really clearly set out the communications that you want to use and how they can achieve the overall goals of your SEC. And they should really focus you in identifying the behavior or the action that you want to see as a result of this. And the more specific and the more measurable you make these communication objectives, the more focused and the more effective they're going to be as a result, and the more effective your communication is going to be as a result. And as I mentioned, your communication objectives need to be in line with what the overall goals are generally of your SEC. So maybe, for example, your focus is on increasing knowledge and awareness of your SEC within your own locality, or you might want to influence perceptions, for example, about community energy initiatives, Or another objective maybe that you want to drive a particular action. So you might want somebody to turn up to an event that you're running, or to demonstrate best practice within your SEC, or the achievements that you've made to date. Or maybe it's a combination of all of these. But the main thing is with setting your objectives that they're specific to your SEC, they're focused and they're measurable. And you can see there on the screen that I've given an example of what I feel is a really good communications example, because it's our communications objective example, because it's specific and it's measurable. And also there's an example there of what I feel would be a much weaker communication objective, because it just doesn't work because it's too generic, and it's not focused, it's not targeted, or it's not time bound. So hopefully these two examples will give you an idea of what you should be looking for when you're setting your communications objectives. So the communications objectives will help you to be clear and focused on what you want to achieve. And we're going to move on now to your target audiences, because they're going to help you to identify who you need to work with in your locality to help drive and promote your sustainable energy community. So these can be very obvious groups of people. So for example, homeowners, community centres, those that you want to join your SEC. But it might also be other audiences within your area, such as local politicians or local media, who might have the influence and the reach to help you grow your SEC as well. And I suppose at the same time, it might seem very obvious, but within every neighbourhood and within every community, there are loads of potential allies that you can be connecting with to see if they can help spread the word about your sustainable energy community. They can help you promote any local events that you might be running or you might have planned. They might be able to highlight the work that you've done so far and the successes that you've achieved to date. So whether that's the neighbourhood scouts group, or whether it's the local GAA club, or an elected councillor or TD in your area, a local school or a local business, these are really valuable networks to have within your locality, and it's really good to build this network in terms of spreading the word about your SEC. And then don't forget about other networks like ourselves in Codema, SEAI, your local authority as well. So together, by building that network, I'd really encourage sustainable energy communities, if you're not already connecting with these types of organisations, to do so, and just to see who you can be reaching out to in your locality, because they're really useful allies to, I suppose, see where the commonalities lie and to see how they can support your SEC. So I'm just going to move on now to the actual tools that you can use to help promote your SEC and communicate to your audiences. So the first area that we'll look at now is social media. And of course, social media can be a bit of a minefield, and there's so much of a range of social media networks out there, such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and they go on. And the main benefits really of using these social media accounts, particularly from a community perspective, is that they allow you to connect and to stay connected with the audiences that you need to reach out to. And you can share news straight away, you can get conversations going with members of your community, and this of course can be your physical community or can be your online community as well. And also social media is a great way of promoting any events that you're planning or highlighting any projects that you've completed as well. And then as we're all aware, and as I've mentioned, there are so many different social media networks out there. So really it's about using the right social media network that works for your own community. So for example, you might want news to travel fast about your SEC, and you might want to provide regular updates. So maybe Twitter works best here for you. Or maybe you've got really strong visuals and photos of your SEC and the work that you're doing. So in that instance, Instagram might be a really good choice for your SEC. Or perhaps you want a real community focus. So for that reason, maybe having a Facebook group or a Facebook page might work best here. So again, it's just really down to which network suits you best and will help you achieve your goals. And it's important to say that no matter what network you decide to go with, it's important to post regularly and be committed to your social media accounts. But I suppose in doing so, it's mindful to consider the time and the resources that's involved in running these social media networks and building your audience across social media. So just as a tip for that, and if time and resources are an issue, and I suspect for many communities they are, there are some handy tools that you can use. So for example, you can use a free platform called Hootsuite, and that will let you manage multiple social media accounts and schedule posts in advance. So I think tools like Hootsuite, and then there's TweetDeck as well for Twitter, they're definitely tools that you should bear in mind if time and resources for social media is an issue. And I suppose just because we're a little bit limited on time here this evening, I'll just use the two examples of Twitter and Facebook, and I'll just give you some tips here on how you can maximize coverage and reach your audiences across those platforms. So with Twitter, you can share news and updates about your sustainable energy community, obviously in the form of tweets. And if I was to pick my top tip for Twitter, I would advise you just to avoid text-only tweets. And if it's possible, use more interactive content. So for example, like photos and videos, because this will make your tweets more engaging and more interesting, and there's a better chance of them being retweeted and a greater audience actually seeing your posts in the first place. And I suppose you can also another tip is you can also look at what's trending on Twitter and then join in on the conversation using that relevant hashtag if it's relevant to you. So just to give you an example, when remote working and working from home was trending on Twitter a few months ago, we'd put together some energy saving tips for working from home, and we were able to join in on, or we were able to, I suppose, not hijack the remote working conversation, but we were able to use that hashtag, and it really helped boost our posts, and it helped to drive traffic as well to the web page where we had those energy saving tips as well. And then just moving on to Facebook, which probably has a slightly more community focus, and it's really good at helping you to build and maintain online relationships within your community. And it's really good for raising awareness generally about your sustainable energy community. And another great thing about Facebook is that you can actually schedule events if you're planning those within Facebook itself. And then you can invite your followers to attend and to share your event, which is really handy within Facebook. You can also set up private Facebook groups specifically for you and your SEC members, as well as having a Facebook page as well. So you can have both the public page, but also the private Facebook group for your SEC members, if that's something that you want to do. And again, it's just the same idea of trying to grow your following by inviting friends, family, neighbors, and so on to follow your page, and making sure that you're following other Facebook pages that have a similar audience or similar interests as well. And again, it's just about, making sure that your posts aren't too static, and that you can make your content as engaging as possible through photos and videos, for example, of what your SEC has been up to. And then I suppose just another handy tip with Facebook is if there's any members of your SEC that are on Facebook, they can invite their own friends to like the page and to follow your SEC page on Facebook. And then if you're posting on Facebook and somebody actually likes one of your posts, you can invite them to join and to follow your page as well, which is a handy or a sneaky way of increasing your following on Facebook. And I suppose we can't really talk about online tools without mentioning websites, of course, and these can act very much at the heart or be the information hub about what your SEC is doing and what you're up to. And I suppose with websites, the main issue there is the cost of websites, and the cost of some websites would make your eyes water. They can go anywhere up to 20 grand or even beyond that. But the good news is that there's lots of free online tools which will help you build your own website for free, or even for low cost, or even free of charge. So there's sites there like Nix and Google sites which will give you that online presence very cheaply, as I said, or even free of charge. There's also blogging sites that are completely free, like Blogger. Or another one that we use a lot in Codema is a free design tool called Canva. And that's really handy for creating nice easy designs like infographics and social media graphics and so on. So I'd really recommend Canva. You can set up a free account for anyone who is who's interested in kind of creating nice graphics around their social media or on their website or online. And then another online tool that you might want to consider is setting up your own e-newsletter and getting this out to your local network, because it's a great way of sharing news about what your SEC is doing and promoting any events that you have planned. And again, if you look on Google, there's a range of free and low-cost newsletter programs that you can use. The main one that people seem to use, or the one that seems to be more commonly known, is MailChimp. But there's a range of them out there, and they all essentially, they've got different features, but they all essentially do the same thing. And then it's also important to say with e-newsletters that don't forget other organizations within your network that have newsletters as well. So for ourselves in Codema, the likes of SEAI, you can send us on your own news about your SEC and we'll be happy to put that up on our website. So make sure to get in touch with us and make sure to let us know what you're doing, and we'll be happy to spread the word and promote that for you. And then if you're looking for more widespread coverage, engaging local media is a great way to do this. And there's lots of different ways that you can achieve this. And there's lots of different hooks and strategies that you can use to try and get a local newspaper or a local radio station to cover your story. So for example, you might have carried out a survey within your SEC recently or within your community with some really interesting findings, or maybe you've just won an award, or you finished your energy master plan, or you've just retrofitted a number of buildings within the community. There's always an angle and there's always a way to pitch yourself to journalists and to gain coverage of your SEC. So I definitely think kind of looking at that media angle and how you can gain coverage is something that I would definitely urge all SECs to consider doing, and to have that media strategy there as well. And another great way, just speaking of media coverage and achieving this and raising awareness generally of your SEC, is by hosting an event within your community. And obviously we haven't had too many face-to-face events this year, and hopefully things will change in 2021 or around that space. But thankfully, at least this year, we've been able to go online, and with Stuart's presentation there, we've seen the benefits as well of being able to go online. And there is obviously a number of platforms like Zoom, which we're using tonight, Google Hangouts, Facebook Live, and so on. So we've all become familiar with all these online platforms over the last few months. So while you won't be able to organize a physical event at the moment, you can certainly keep going with online events by hosting a webinar about your SEC, or hosting an online information session. And again, if you are planning any events, just feel free to let Codema know, let SEAI know, and we'll be happy to promote it along our social media networks and on our website as well. And I suppose another great tip for organising events, and what I feel is a really good tool for both organising and advertising these events, regardless of whether they're face-to-face or whether it's an online event, is a platform called Eventbrite. So many of you might have heard of it already, but it's a really good online tool for managing and organising events, and we use it all the time in Codema. Very easy to use. You can have a free account, and once you have that set up, you'll be able to create and manage as many events as you like. So I definitely recommend Eventbrite if you're organising local events. And I suppose last but not least, just as a reminder to anyone who's not aware, our communications team, just over the last few months, we've developed a range of resources to support you in promoting your sustainable energy community. So we've everything online, from social media post templates to recruitment flyers that you can share locally, promotional posters that you can print locally or share digitally, and also a case study template which will help you to highlight any successes or achievements within your SEC as well. So you can see there on the screen, we've examples there of the social media template that you can download, and you can use this to post across your social media networks. You can also see our recruitment and our awareness flyer. And again, you can download this and you can fully customize it for your own SEC as well, which is handy. And on this next slide, you can see an example of one of our promotional posters and just the front cover there of the case study template that I mentioned. And as I said, these are all fully customizable and you can tailor these for your own SEC. And just if you're looking for those templates, if you go on to codema.ie/SEC, and within that, if you go to the promote your SEC section, you'll find all the templates there. And if you haven't taken a look at them yet, I strongly recommend that you go on to the web page and have a look at them and download these templates, because they are a very useful resource to have. So I suppose that's the end of the presentation. I hope some of this information was useful to you, and I'm conscious that we've covered an awful lot of topics over the last 15 minutes or so. So what I might do is just end this presentation by opening up a poll, if we can, just to see if you think it would be useful to get further training in the area of in any of these communication areas that I've just covered. And if so, what are the areas you're most interested in? So if we can, I might just ask Caddy if we can open up the poll and start that there. And, you know, and thanks for your time. My contact details are on the screen, and we'll be looking forward to following this up with everyone. So thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. That was great. Really, there's a great team there in Codema to help communities. So please do reach out. You know, if you have any news, pass it on, because, you know, they're always looking for stories to communicate as well. So as your regional coordinator, Codema are very happy to take your news and, you know, let other people know as well. So do that. And as well, your mentor, you know, do make use of your mentor at a county level to help you with this. So, you know, this is another area that you have allies, as Suzanne identified. So your mentor is a great ally in communicating your story. I also think, and coming back to Stuart's talk, you know, if you are a bit kind of nervous about the whole social media thing, remember, 18 to 24-year-olds want to volunteer, so they can do this stuff in their sleep. And, you know, it's a bit like Stuart's point, task before you ask, and get them lined up to actually become involved, you know. So I think if you're kind of a bit nervous about spreading the word, there's a couple of things there that I think hopefully you can take away from this. But it is about selling the story, and the story is sellable. So, you know, I think that's the thing to remember. SECs are a timely thing. They can touch a movement. So don't be afraid to spread the word. So next up, we have a section titled Learning from Each Other. And this is case studies from sustainable energy communities within our region. And first of all, we have Brian Murphy of St. John Bosco Youth Centre, CLG in Drimna. Brian has been the manager of the Bosco since 2003 and has always been very conscious of the effective management of their energy usage, especially due to the age of the building. The development of the Drimna SEC has given the centre access to the professional supports to devise a costed plan to make the building as energy efficient as possible. And Brian has a wealth of experience from bringing the SEC through the three-step process, and will speak about the lessons that he has learned so far. So over to you, Brian, and thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Gavin. I'm just going to share my screen. Right, just one moment. I haven't done much of this PowerPoint recently, so just let me right, just one sec. Play. Right, as was mentioned there, Brian Murphy is my name, and I'm involved in the Drimna SEC. As I was a manager of the St. John Bosco Youth Centre for the last 17 years, and I've worked in the area prior to that in community development for a number of years. The SEC was established in 2018. We made the application for the Energy Master Plan in November of that year. We did have a completion date expected of March 2020, but I suppose, as a lot of things this year, there was a bit of a delay. And and we received an agreement for an extension to the process from SEAI. I suppose for us, the Energy Master Plan sort of was a good starting point, and I'll explain that why that was at a later stage in the presentation. I suppose for our thing, it was look to get some baseline data essentially, and I suppose to identify, try and I suppose set some targets and some goals. The SEC is probably different to a lot of other SECs in that we've quite a small initial membership. There's myself, the administrator in the youth centre, and then Peter Burke, who I think is in the audience there tonight, who's chair of our Ladies' Hall and the Drimna Residents Association. I suppose Drimna, I presume, look, a lot of people would have heard of the area. I suppose it's along the canal, so anybody getting the Red Line Lewis from Tala or from the Red Cow into town would pass the part of one side of Drimna. The other place, I suppose, that it's well known for is the Children's Hospital, which is located on the far side from the St. John Bosco Youth Centre, the other side of the area. Drimna itself, I suppose, has 4,791 households. It has a high proportion of owner-occupiers, I suppose, compared to a lot of other parts of Dublin, I suppose primarily because of the age of the area. 79% of the dwellings were pre-1960. Most of them are sort of 1940 up to 1950. When we were doing the Energy Master Plan, some of the data was that 43% of the properties had BERs. The average is E1, which I suppose for most people on here tonight would indicate that, you know, there is a huge potential for savings and, you know, reduction in energy use in the area. I suppose a lot of houses, and I suppose driving around the area, a lot of the houses have been upgraded, particularly with external insulation and stuff. So it would indicate that a lot of houses have, you know, really sort of could do with a lot of upgrading. The figure there is for the area. It was I think that was 2016. So it was 13.5 million on energy. The housing, I suppose, just to give people an idea of what it looks like. There was initially in the building phase, there was, I suppose, two parts to Drimna. So on the left-hand side there, you have the Dublin Corporation style of houses. And then on the right, you have the associated properties. As you can see, they're quite similar, sort of standard, sort of 1940s housing or city housing. And there's a couple of more examples. Most of them are done in terraces of maybe 5 or 8 houses, and then another associated properties. I suppose give context currently, I suppose the houses in the area sell from sort of 235 to over 335. The standard house, I suppose, when they were built originally, they're quite small to what people would expect in a modern house, or even houses going back, say, you know, 30, 40 years. They tend to be about sort of from about 80 square meters up to about maybe 105 for the standard houses. Obviously, over the years, people have, you know, built various extensions on a lot of houses as well in the area. An interesting fact when I looked at Daft recently was out of 28 houses on sale, only 26 of them have 1 bathroom. So there again, compared to, I suppose, most sort of recent houses or modern housing, you know, most houses now would have sort of at least a minimum of 2 bathrooms. I suppose driving around the area, most of the houses have had some improvements. It'd be very rare to find a house that's in its original sort of built condition. The sort of improvements would be sort of the older type aluminium windows, maybe double glazing, aluminium front doors or PVC front doors. Obviously, over the years, a lot of the houses, or most of the houses, would have had gas heating installed, whereas prior to that, it would have been coal fire. Stuff like conservatories and porches. I suppose what makes our SEC interesting from a Dublin perspective is there's a lot of areas around Dublin that would have similar sort of would have been built in the same period, would have a similar look. So anybody familiar with Crumlin, parts of Cabra, parts of Finglas, you know, those areas all look the same, basically because they were built at the same time, and most of them were Dublin Corporation developments, particularly around, I suppose, moving people out of, you know, what were tenement buildings in Dublin city centre. Drimnagh statistically or demographically would have a higher percentage of older people than is the case across Dublin. I suppose that's mainly because, you know, obviously people moving there in the 40s or 30s, 40s, 50s, and, you know, still living there, family have moved on and that. So I suppose without being morbid about it, you know, in the future, a lot of those properties will come on the market, as has been the case over the last 10, 15 years. Which, and actually on the demographics, Drimnagh also has a higher proportion of people under 18 compared to the rest of Dublin, but it has as I say, a higher population or higher percentage of older people compared to the city. The two organisations involved, I suppose, in the SEC initial stages, were ourselves, the St. John Bosco Youth Centre, and then Our Ladies Hall, of which Peter is chairperson of. You can get, there's an idea of what our annual bills are. Both buildings will be fairly old, would have been built sort of back in the sort of 40s into the 50s. Both of them operate 7 days a week, and both have volunteer management committees with various levels of paid staff. The Bosco Youth Centre, I suppose we'd have a different structure in that we would have paid youth workers, and a range of other paid staff. The sort of size of buildings, the Bosco would have 2 sort of large sports halls, smaller hall. We've another 12 sort of various types of rooms. We have changing rooms, showers, toilets and that. Our Ladies Hall will be slightly different in that it's sort of nearly one building. It's a large theatre style hall, many of which were in around Dublin and around the country, are built during the 50s and that. So it has a full stage, the full stage setup. It has an orchestra pit, it has dressing rooms, and then it has a number of offices and other rooms. Just to give an idea, so all the red building there opposite the Lewis is the Bosco, and then this aerial view then is Our Ladies Hall. So you can see the Bosco is made up of all different sort of buildings, and then Our Ladies Hall is one separate. Just again, some other views of the two buildings. I suppose some of the works that we have done or we have completed since we started this process, a number of lighting upgrades. We were forced to upgrade some of a couple of our gas boilers. We're going to be replacing all the rest of the lighting units in the building. We would hope at some stage to install solar PV system, because of quite a large south-facing roof. There's a number of windows that need to be replaced, some attic insulation, and some heating controls upgrades. Our Ladies Hall have completed. Now, this will be through various funding, Dublin City Council 66%, and a number of other sources. So they had replaced 60 windows, which would have been a lot. I think most of them were original, with double glazed PVC. Replaced all their external doors, changed the oil-fired heating system to a gas condenser system, and replaced most of the radiators with high output. They also would hope to upgrade all of their light fittings. And also a big thing for that hall would be to able to put in zones for the heating system so that they're not heating the building just in one go. Right. I suppose into the learnings that we would have, I suppose one of the strengths I would have felt would have been that it was a small committee. As I say, initially the SEC, I suppose, would have been seen as a vehicle to look at the two buildings themselves, and then also, you know, follow on from that would have been to look at the community, to look at the housing. So I suppose we're at a stage where I suppose we are hoping to outreach a bit more to the community. I'll explain that in a minute. I suppose both buildings will be sort of quite busy hubs for the community. So, you know, outside of sort of COVID or pre-COVID, we would have had a lot of people using both of the buildings, a lot of organisations every week. I suppose I should mention our mentors, because I know Gerard is on there tonight. Previous to that, at the early days, we would have had Mel Gavin from Sligo IT. You know, I think it's a crucial part. Like without the mentors, like we wouldn't have got to the stage we were at. And I think, you know, they are key to the process. One of the other strengths there is that the housing in the area for us is all very similar. So out of those nearly, okay, I have a wrong figure there, but out of 5,000 households, you know, most of the houses are quite similar. Or there's only a certain number of types of housing. Other strengths would have been we had attended a number of events as well, or I had, and I suppose learning from other people, sort of pointers, mistakes that they had made, and just general information and idea sharing. Some of the difficulties, I think, look, the procurement process for the energy master plan took up a good bit of time, you know, assessing the applications and stuff like that. COVID-19, you know, has affected everything. I think where it's affected us most was I would have had hoped to have had a lot more community engagement, you know, and face-to-face and, you know, community meetings and that. We did do a couple of an online seminar and information session, but I think, you know, if we had been able to do community meetings and that, we would have had a lot more engagement. I suppose the area doesn't have many businesses, so it's mainly small shops, you know, and small businesses. Other difficulties, having the time to engage, you know, and develop a social media campaign, having the resources, I suppose, to be able to work individually with households. I suppose that's a big thing in terms of the level of advice we can give people. And I think the Energy Master Plan has given us something there that is quite valuable, you know, in promoting people upgrading their houses and being able to show them examples. There was a thing there about the process being bureaucratic, but I think, look, that's by its very nature. I suppose our future, like we only signed off on everything on the Energy Master Plan at the end of November. The next thing will be to work out how do we launch it, how do we make people aware of the information in it, how do we, as I say, you know, there's huge potential in the area for upgrades and for, you know, for people to make huge savings and a big contribution personally from, you know, reductions in carbon use and that. We'd like to broaden the membership of the SEC through more community engagement, and then obviously to secure the finance and funding for both buildings. We will be looking at setting a review date, you know, to be able to, I suppose, guide ourselves in, are we making progress or not? And another element as well would be how to engage, how to utilise the local schools that we'd be quite involved with, how to engage with them to promote the SEC and networking with other SECs. I think that's me, and I don't know if I've gone over time or I lost track there. So
No bother, Brian. Thank you very
Yeah,
much. It was great. Just to give people an insight there, I heard you say your average building had an E1 BER. Well, just so that you're not too worried about building what in the 1940s. In fact, the average house built since 2004 has an E1 BER in Ireland.
Serious?
Yeah, so it's costing. So it just goes to show there's an awful lot of work to be done. So you're not alone out there in Drimna in the 1940s. An awful lot of the country is needs this work. So again, another reason why the SEC is a very valuable tool. Most SECs don't have an orchestra pit, mind, so that's a really valuable thing you got on your side. When you're running your first event, please do invite us. We'd love to come along. And I noticed you saying that the procurement process for consultants was a challenging exercise. That's something we're really trying to address in Codema through a shared process, through our partnership with the local authorities, and a procurement method where the local authorities will take on all of that administrative stuff, which means you guys, and Brian, I suppose, you did it last year before the change around in mentors, but we're really hoping to help SECs with the whole procurement of that consultants and the administrative grant administration number of stuff. Really, it's not what SECs need to be doing. You need to be getting out, meeting your communities, getting people involved, spreading the word. So anyway, well done, Brian. Thank you very much. That was great. I'd like to now introduce, if I can please, Peter Hamilton from Maynooth SEC. Peter was a founder of the Maynooth SEC in 2018 and has been the group chair since then. He's a member of the Green Party and he was elected to Kildare County Council in 2019. He is currently also chair of the Kildare Green Party branch and chairs the Climate Strategic Policy Committee in Kildare County Council. He's an engineer by background, and Peter has worked in the technology sector since the 1980s, bringing a strong set of experiences to the challenges of capacity building and community work towards a more sustainable future. So thank you very much, and over to you.
Good evening, folks. Can you hear me properly?
I can hear you fine, Peter. So
Sure,
I think
yeah,
sometimes can feel you're talking into a black hole, but we're all there.
No, I lost my mute button once everything took over the full screen, and I wasn't sure. Very impressive, Brian. Really impressive. I can share a few common experiences. We came over to you to play girls soccer a couple of years ago, and we were well beaten. That's one. And our family, we retrofitted a red brick in Rialto 2 years ago, a 1907 build. It was fascinating to tear that apart and see how it was built and see how rotten the floorboards were. But we went from E to C. And the only reason we ended up on C is that at the time it was assessed with a chimney open. So it sounds like E is the default from 1907 to 2004, which is E probably is for effort. And the bureaucracy made us tear our heads out. We worked 4 measures, and each measure was like a completely different application to the SEAI because we were doing it alone. So it was tough. Into Maynooth then. So we got really motivated by the SEC program. We had a bunch of North Kildare towns also interested, and we formed a network and sharing knowledge in that network, even though only 4 of us have got off the ground properly so far, has still been very valuable. We got a lively bunch of team of people. We have a very strong community council. We're about 16,000 people, so probably are close to what Brian presented in terms of number of households and number of houses, give or take. Maybe we're 6,000. And we also have we're a town with a strong business community. Our community council is very strong and has most residents groups represented. Our tidy towns are very proud, and those 2 got us really embedded into the community. The other thing that was very strong for us is that Kildare County Council pioneered an approach where the council would be the applying body for the SEC, so that we didn't have to have everything set up, incorporate ourselves, fundraise, tender. The council had tendered and had a blanket tender with ORS to do a number of sustainability projects. And so far, ORS have done the Energy Master Plan work for Maynooth and Clane under that umbrella, with Kildare County Council managing the money. Now, it didn't happen any faster. That was one of our frustrations, that because it was new, and I'm going to challenge the SEAI, they changed the requirements 3 times during the application. So we had to apply on a different basis because the rules of the game were moving during it. But working with the County Council was very helpful. And just in case you're thinking, it was before it was even running or getting elected. So that's just coincidental in that case, even though it helps being a member of the council. We've pretty usual vision of we want to be one of the role model sustainable towns. And in our county development plan, the county's looking at Maynooth on a train line with the Dart coming to quite a few interesting features, so we may be able to put some good things together. And of course, we're thinking of our children and our grandchildren. That's basically the generation that are going to benefit from our path to net zero. We revised our approach and our knowledge of what we were very many times. We thought we'd be giving direct advice to people, we'd be helping them along in a very amateur way initially. We really did the learn, plan, do like everyone does. We thought we knew quite a bit because we had in our team, we have the man whose company put the solar panels on Butler's chocolate factory. So we have experience, but really in terms of community engagement and activation, we had a lot to do, and getting through the procedures and the bureaucracy. But our Energy Master Plan was awarded in May 2020. I think we were writing our applications in January 2019. So that was like way too long. That was nearly a year and a half. And again, the ground rules were changed 3 times, and that was very frustrating for the team. We're progressing well with it, and I'll share some of the information it's giving us soon. And it's leading us, I'm going to describe our experiences and some of the pluses and minuses through this flow chart. I'll take you a couple of images of it. So now, as we go from an Energy Master Plan, reasonably well known in the community, where do we go next? What do we do that's positive? And one of the things we've decided is that we'll leverage a lot of partnership. We were preparing to do a BEC application for this January with an Energy Master Plan halfway there. And a couple of months ago, we concluded we'd have most likely failed because there's a lot of competition. We learned that really your proposal has to be in December because it's so oversubscribed. So they end up with applications they can't even address because it's so oversubscribed. So we decided that if we were to partner with an agency who already has an activity, and we've had most of our discussion with REIL based in Ashburn. They came highly recommended by a number of people. They've had good track record, and they have an ongoing better energy program running in collaboration with Life Credit Union, so that you bring a couple of households under that umbrella, and you don't have to be doing all the heavy lifting yourself. So that's an approach we're doing. Since we saw that, we're trying to figure out how we would regularize that so that it doesn't look like we've just gone off and helped a business become successful by being their free marketing agency, as some of our discussion. How do we validate that it makes sense, and how do we look for a little bit of quid pro quo where there's a contribution into community programs and also eligible homes for free energy? How do we get something back into the community? So that's what we're working on at the moment. So we've actually decided to do a process to send a very simple application to a number of energy agencies, so that they have the opportunity to, with us, speak to a town of 16,000 people, and both as an assessment of the quality, even though we know by reputation we've very good agencies, TIP, 3 counties, and REIL are very good and all very busy and all very short of time now. So there's so much work to do in this area that we're getting these constraints, but we're going to go through this type of process and look for a community dimension to the program. We may then go for a BEC type proposal, or whatever it's been renamed to by next year. Go for one of those next year, or we may discover that the partnership approach, that our strength is being out in the community and a connection to the community, and let other people who are better than it. And we've been researching how to support eligible homes for free upgrades almost since our beginning. And a lot of us want to contribute something there, where we've got this catch that there's 95% funding, or whatever the exact number is. And it's almost impossible to get the project moving, or the last 5%. And in some ways, not everybody's interested. It's easier for the agencies to work with a fairly affluent household project. That's the challenge that we're seeing. So we're going to keep plugging at understanding how to support this. I'd love if there was some best practice, because otherwise we're going to end up with a bunch left behind. And it may be that part of the quid pro quo with the agencies is something gets thrown back into helping that sector. The other problem with the eligible homes is how do you avoid winners and losers? You do 3 homes and they get fully upgraded, and what about the other 100? So we've got a bunch of dilemmas there that we're dealing with. So some of the challenges, we came in with a lot of talent and motivation. We have a couple of people from Maynooth University. We have geographers from Maynooth University who know how to use the census data. We have senior aid people with trochar and concern because of the town we're in. We have people used to politics and people with an engineering background. So we've got lots of skills. We lost some confidence out of a loss of momentum because of the 2 years you can see in this chart. We lost some members. We held together. I know some SEC have fallen by the wayside. It's a long thing. And in the Volunteer Ireland presentation, there was a lot of talk about getting people involved quickly in projects. This stuff's for the long term. You're doing 1, 2, 3 year engineering projects. So it's that's an interesting dilemma, is how to give people quick results in volunteering. And then I'm putting questions, what is the role of the SEC now? Those that have grown to agencies are becoming big capacity. What's the true role of the frontline SEC? And as I've mentioned, one of ours is figuring out how to be the face in the community and being closest to the community. And then how does that play with the rest of the system? And how does it play with the financing institutions who are also coming in as businesses and making in a position to make a fair bit of money, but we need them. We absolutely need them. So that's some of the dilemma. Our energy master plan is going quite well. The town was built between 1980 and 2005. We have almost 1,000 post 2005 houses that are at some form of A rating, so that's fantastic. But the bulk of the town is in, we don't have we have very small pockets of the really old E-rated, but 1970s bungalows, thin walls upwards, we have thousands of houses. So very big, and as some of your information showed, a 1990s house is not much better than a 1950s house or even a 1907 house in terms of energy performance. So this massive pocket of developments to look at. In terms of what we do with that, we're going to put most of our energy into households, into partnerships, and also try to crack the eligible homes for special measures things. Within our energy master plan, we have 5 businesses and community groups talking to us. We are surveying the very large Glenroyal Hotel. We're working with our GAA, and we've got a couple of others. I don't know if we'll be able to move quickly into projects with them. We'll put our initial energy in household. That's another item to be decided. And I think that, yes, that's almost the end of the line. We did run a household survey. It was a very good tactic. Our community group connections helped us, and we used an online survey, which was wonderful because we've now got this lovely database, and we've got a bunch of households who are interested in any energy projects and have told us which type of projects, from solar to wrapping to heating systems, and there's a good appetite there. Most are looking for 2 or 3 measures. Most are reasonably well informed in terms of the types of things they can do. And again, in terms of the energy agency type companies and the funding institutions, that would be very valuable information for them. So we're working at how to make those connections without giving it all away for free, giving the community connection away for free. So I definitely think that's it this time. Yes, it is. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. That was great. I suppose I was struck by well, 2 things that you said. Your dilemma between the hugely onerous and complex BEC program and, the challenges that a community can face in filling out one of those, or a more partnership approach where you might, I suppose, to a certain extent, outsource that. But what's the quid pro quo for the community if you take that route? Or are you just, as you said, the front face advertising department for somebody else? So yes, I mean, I think this is challenges that communities are facing. A lot of communities are facing at this stage, turning the energy master plan into projects on the ground. So you're at the coal face there. I've been using the analogy with communities for a long time now, that communities in Ireland faced similar challenges back in the 1950s. They didn't know what to do with their money. How do they keep wealth in their communities? And people met in little halls, and they talked about these notions called credit unions, and that was a long time ago, 50 or 60 years ago. And now they are in every parish and town in the country, and they are, such valuable resources. So I think that's a very valuable segue to our next speaker. And we're delighted to have Jerry McConville from Capital Credit Union, who are now an SEC. Jerry is the CEO of Capital Credit Union based in Dundrum, with over 50,000 members and 9 branches within South Dublin. With over 30 years experience in this area, serving the community, Jerry is also the Vice President of Dunleary Rathdown Chamber, and he is on the Board of Management of Dundrum College of Further Education. Capital Credit Union recently joined the SEC program, so we're delighted Rathdown. Jerry is going to share some background to Capital Credit Union and discuss the place of credit unions in supporting local communities in their energy saving initiative. So Jerry, over to you. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Gavin. I'm trying to share my screen, but at the moment I can't find the slides. Katie, maybe you could, can you share them for me?
Now, Jerry, if you just track down to the bottom of your screen, you should see a little arrow, an up arrow there next to share screen. Have you found that? If you push the little up arrow, you have your slides open, you should be able to find that. Just click on the window that is your slides, and that should make it go live.
Yeah, they're not there. They're on my desktop, Gavin, but I can't see the desktop.
I have them open for you there, Jerry, so I'm happy to act as the slide maneuver if you want to tell me when to move them along.
Go ahead.
I'll fire ahead. So.
Okay, thank you. I believe I'm the last presenter tonight, so I'll try and keep this fairly short. I found the whole webinar very interesting, I have to say. We've just recently registered as a sustainable energy community, so we wouldn't be as far down the road as Drimna and Maynooth, but nevertheless, we think we've a lot to offer, and we've a lot to, there's still a lot of work to do, but we're making good progress. So if you go to the next slide, please. So just who are Capital Credit Union, just to give you a little bit of background. Well, first of all, we're a not-for-profit financial cooperative. Now, I mean, we still have to make a surplus in order to give our members some return on their savings, and also to build up reserves and so on and so forth. But the motivation of the credit union is not about making profit. It's about maximizing services to members. And that's something we work very hard at. So we're based in South Dublin and have been there for more than 50 years. Capital Credit Union is really a combination of 8 different credit unions that have merged in the last 15 years. So it's about 8 credit unions that have come together over a period of about 12 years or so. We now have over 50,000 members, and we've 9 branches in South Dublin. So we're right down as far as the Liffey, and we're right out as far as Leopardstown Racecourse. So it's a fairly big area. It's patchy enough in terms of we would cover all of Dublin 2, for instance. We would cover most of Dublin 4, a lot of Dublin 8, some of Dublin 12, most of Dublin 14, 16, 18, and South County Dublin, and a little bit of North Wicklow, in fact. So we've over 250 million in assets, and we're very much community focused and volunteer led. So our board of directors are all voluntary members who are elected at an AGM. Okay, go ahead, Suzanne. So our services then, we provide personal loans to members up to 100,000. We do mortgages up to 300,000. We will shortly be getting into SME lending, so small businesses will be able to borrow from the credit union. We provide a range of insurance products like home insurance, life insurance, travel insurance. And one of our very popular benefits for members is the member car draw. It's a token amount members pay per month, and they're in a car draw. So we do a car draw every month, and at the moment we have a hybrid car. So we're even doing our sustainability agenda on that bit as well. We provide full 24/7 online banking, so members can access their account, they can transfer money, they can apply for a loan, all online. And we've recently established a member service team, so they provide phone and internet and email services from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. We also do free will making and other sort of ancillary services for members free of charge. Okay, go ahead. So in terms of sustainability, in the credit union itself, we set up our own internal green committee in 2019, and we looked at a whole range of sort of things that we could do internally. They seemed very small individually, but combined, we felt that I still do feel that we're making a difference and doing some very worthwhile things. So we introduced a range of energy saving measures across the branches. We were able to reduce waste. And so, for instance, one of the things we did was each office would have like a water cooler or a water machine, which came supplied with plastic cups. And of course, that company would replace the plastic cups every month. So it was a constant source of income for them. We simply did away with the plastic cups and gave all the staff their own reusable water bottles. So that, you know, we felt good about that and got rid of a lot of plastic. One of the things we've been doing with our own members is a campaign to encourage them to sign up for the AGM. Notice goes out every year to, as you can imagine, 50,000 members. Well, sorry, about 40,000 members, because about 10,000 of them are junior accounts. And we send out a statement every year to members as well. So over the last 2 years, we've had 6,000 members sign up for the EE statements. So that means they're getting all of their correspondence electronically. We have plans then to audit our buildings. So we have 9 offices. So the plan is that we would audit the 9 offices and work on making them more sustainable. So 2 or 3 of the offices are quite modern, but the other offices are fairly old and could do with some work. And in doing that, we would hope to upgrade them in terms of sustainability. Okay, go ahead. So then in our community, the credit union is a big supporter of the community. We try to support as many groups as we can. So one of the things we've done this year is support community gardens. We've also had a Going Green grant in 4 schools in our catchment area. We sponsored energy awareness days and promote sustainable living. So one of the things we've introduced this year is sustainability as a criteria for sponsorship. So in the past, we would have just looked at worthy causes and so on, but now we're trying to introduce an element of sustainability into the sponsorship. Okay, go ahead. So our sustainable plans going forward then, we'll be launching our green zone later this month or early in January, where we'll be providing a range of green loans to our members. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be doing SME loans. So there'll be a green business loan, a green car loan, green home improvement loan, and a green community loan. And they will all be at discounted rates of interest. We will be providing support to SECs in our area, or be available to provide support to SECs in our area, promoting our Pro Energy scheme, which I'll talk a little bit about in a second, but it's basically the brand that we're using to promote those green zone loans. Engaging with the local community more, so trying to identify projects that the local community needs support on, and basically become a pioneer of sustainability locally. I mean, we've 50,000 members, so we see that as a great opportunity to sort of spread the word and get the sustainability agenda to front of mind. Okay, thank you. Go ahead. So the Green Zone, the Pro Energy scheme, is basically something we've been doing for the last 3 years with REIL. It offers members a 35% grant for deep retrofit. Other works are also available, and the credit union provides the finance for the members. It's a seamless process throughout, and we have a customer relationship management scheme between the credit union and REIL. So the member is basically, it's managed the whole way through, which makes it pretty seamless for the member and as painless as possible. Okay, go ahead. Thank you. So in terms of supporting the local SECs, we have a long history of first of all, supporting the community. We're providing loans is what we do best. We have significant experience when it comes to green lending. We're available to work with local SECs that are looking for finance for projects. And we have internal knowledge available to support the SECs with engagement and planning and with financial education as well. So yeah, go ahead. So in terms of us being an SEC, as I said at the start, we're fairly early still in that process, but we see it as being building on our current green initiatives to become more sustainable, to lead a grassroots community-led campaign in tandem with our members. Again, we have this big database of members to tap into. It's about reducing energy consumption in our own branches and educating our members. It's about helping with projects to create more comfortable and greener homes, and about working with other SECs in our community, both to help them realise their potential and to enhance our communities. One of the objectives of a credit union is the well-being of its members and their communities. So we're not just about energy saving, we're also looking at the whole sustainability agenda and other things such as promoting and protecting wildlife and biodiversity in our catchment area. Okay, go ahead. So going forward, you know, credit unions across the country are becoming more focused on the green agenda. You heard Peter there talking about Life Credit Union. Community connection makes us an ideal partner for SECs, is what we believe. The green agenda needs to grow from communities around Ireland, and there are resources available from SEAI and agencies like Codema will be crucial. So those resources are crucial. And we're always open to working with SECs in our own catchment area. Next slide, please. So that's basically it, folks, if anybody has any questions.
Thanks very much, Jerry. That was great. I think I suppose the obvious thing that jumps out, you know, this idea of a green agenda and community, really. You know, I mean, that's what the SEC program is all about. It's trying to make real projects happen in local areas, which can improve people's quality of life and make their homes and communities more pleasant to live in. So, you know, we're delighted to be part of that program as well here in Codema as the regional coordinators for this program. I really want to remind you that there is, you know, a wealth of talent in each county in our region. So we've got Wicklow, Kildare, Meath, Fingal, South County Dublin, Dublin City, and Dunleary, Rathdown, with a skilled mentor in each one of those counties there to help you on your journey. So please do make use of your mentor. I just wanted to share our poll results there. There was a dead heat. 50% of you were looking for gaining local media coverage, came in tops with 50% and hosting online events. So we'll take that, and we'd be very happy to kind of maybe shape an event, something like this in the future, and invite you back again to give you more, I suppose, targeted training at that event. Just a few things before we close. We're going to ask a few questions. I think we've got a few questions in, so we'll just take a look at a few of those. I just need to open my slide, or let me see, where are we now? Okay, now I cannot find my questions. Where are they? As always, too many things open on my desktop. So we have a question for Stuart. Finding it hard to get more people involved in their SEC. Looking to try and recruit members from the local community, and also some of the people involved in our SEC have gone quiet since March. How do we get them engaged and involved?
Okay, well, first of all, I suppose anyone that you're looking for new people, I'd encourage you to go through your local volunteer centre. About 75% of people that come through the volunteer centre are not aware of local community volunteer involving organisations in their area. So it's a really good one-stop shop in terms of getting your opportunity up there. It's not the only one, but it's probably, in terms of us having the national database, it's a good way in terms of engagement. In terms of people that have dropped off, it's really important to keep the communication going with people, particularly, I'm not saying now is very late, but as early as March this year, when I suppose we went into lockdown, we were encouraging people to keep that communication going. So as Suzanne was saying, any sort of communication that you can have going out to your members, not necessarily about the ask as in we urgently need volunteers, but just to keep that communication going to them is really important for them to feel that they're part of it, even if they are in one of the at-risk or a high risk or they're cocooning groups. Keeping that communication going is really important. We have seen research from our colleagues in Israel in terms of the challenges that they faced in terms of civil unrest in the country and the increasing number of people that will pull back from volunteering when, you know, I suppose they're there and they're doing it week after week. And then when they step back from it, they reflect on their life, they reflect on all of the things that are affecting us in society too as well now. So keep that communication open is a really important piece, yeah.
There was a question for Suzanne, which was, will slides be presented? And yes, so the video, we're recording this event, so they will be available on the Codema website. So that's Codema/SEC. You'll find them there. And to Brian, we have a couple of questions. I suppose there was a question regarding, you know, you're next to Crumlin and Cabra. Do you think that there's an opportunity for SECs to actually link up, you know, to perhaps maybe, if I'm getting the question right, working with your neighbours?
Yeah, I think based on when they're similar type of areas, like, I mean, that was one of the things, I suppose, that encouraged us, you know, apart from the organisation or the two big buildings. I suppose one of the things was looking and saying that what we do in Drimna, you know, there'd be good potential to replicate it in other areas because the communities are quite similar. The housing stock is quite similar, you know, and for, you know, if an SEC was set up in, I suppose part of the thing I would hope is maybe that, say, the Drimna SEC, you know, rather than necessarily having a Crumlin SEC and stuff, you know, it could broaden out into a Dublin 12 one, you know, and I suppose some of the learnings and I suppose our energy master plan sort of journey, that could be, it would shorten the journey for those other areas somewhat.
Yeah, I think that aggregation idea is very strong. And just with regard to community outreach, what do you have in mind in that space, engagement and community outreach?
Well, I suppose I direct message you there, because what was funny in terms of the presentations tonight, I suppose, is obviously Jerry, and I suppose one of the branches of Capital Credit Unions is in Drimna. So, you know, there's straight away there's that connection, and I'll be giving Jerry a shout soon after this. So, like, a bit that straight away, there's a connection from tonight's webinar. You know, that, you know, Capital have set up as an SEC. One of their branches is in an area that has an SEC. So I suppose one of the things I would be looking at, you know, would be following up on that with Capital members to say, well, look, our energy master plan has what's the register of opportunities for the different house types in the area. Here's the figures, here's the details. I suppose one of the things that in the past I would have liked to have done would have been some sort of newsletter. But I suppose in common with a lot of areas, you daren't try and put something through somebody's letterbox because of the junk mail, or no junk mail. So that sort of knocks you back a bit. I suppose one of the other ways we would have done it, I suppose we would, between the two organisations, we would have, I suppose we probably have 100 different groups would be using both buildings, you know, on a weekly basis. And I suppose as well, as I mentioned in the presentation, the other thing we'll be looking at, particularly the local schools, which would have been built around the same period as well. So they'd be some of the, I suppose one of the things for us as organisations, I would hope to expand the SEC committee, you know, to involve a lot more people. And I would be hoping to use some of the local, there's a new community network in our area as well. And what I'd be hoping to do is sort of, we are linked in with them, and encourage them to take it and run with it.
So a seasoned community campaigner there by the sound of it, Brian. So yeah, I mean, it's all about that. It's all about reaching out, as Suzanne said, identifying your allies, building those alliances, you know, it's a key part of it. There was a question around Dublin City Council, and I suppose that would be our new partnership, what we're calling the lead partner applicant process, where the city councils, well, the local authorities in each of the 7 counties actually, are now actively supporting their local SECs. The question is around bridging finance. It's not exactly bridging finance. They become the financial party with SEAI. So essentially they take on that contractual side. So you partner with the local authority as the contracting partner, and then the contracting partner does all of the financial interaction with SEAI, meaning you don't have to have money in your bank account because it's a retrospective grant. So that's a pressure off communities, you know, to your cash flow or having money available to pay for this. The local authorities, similar to what Peter told us what the situation is in Kildare. There was a question around the B2 building energy rating, and I suppose that is a challenge. Yes, absolutely. It's that's a directive coming from Europe where a house is being materially improved. It must be brought up to a B2 standard, which is a big jump for an E1 to move to a B2. So yeah, these are all challenges, and they're, you know, they're understood. As I say, there's lots of challenges in this space, but where there's challenges, we need to find solutions, and I think the SEC is the best vehicle to do that. Jerry, a question to you. Do you provide sponsorship to local GA clubs? There's a slightly off the point question, but maybe you could just give us.
Well, we do, yeah. But as I said, this year we've introduced a sustainability element to the sponsorship. So
get involved in your local SEC and maybe upgrade your lighting to LEDs. There's a solution for you. Okay, folks. I hope tonight has been of interest to you. You can find links to all the information on the Codema website, and the email address should be on the screen there. It's codema.ie/SEC. So there's all of the information there. Please keep in contact with your county mentor, and they're here to help you. A lot of them I think are in the audience tonight, but you know, if you want, or if you've been kind of like, this has been on your list of things to do, you're in the network and you want to get active again, and tonight you feel like this is something you'd like to do, your mentor is ready. They're ready and ready to talk to you. If your SEC is on social media, why not connect with us? So you can follow Codema on Twitter at Codema Dublin, and make sure you tag Codema in any news that you're posting about, so that we'd be very happy to share it as well. And again, as I say, we will circulate the slides and the recording in the coming days, so watch out for a link to that. And don't forget, please, there's a survey which will pop up automatically at the end of our webinar tonight, so please take an opportunity to just fill that up. We'd love to get some feedback from you on how you felt this event went for you. So it just remains for me to thank Stuart Garland in Volunteer Ireland, Suzanne Fitzpatrick in Codema, Ryan Murphy, St. John Bosco, Peter Hamilton, Maynooth SEC, and Jerry McConville in Capital Credit Union. And to all of you for coming along tonight, thank you very much and good night.